A couple of months ago, the Ipsos MediaCT Qual team decided to run an internal piece of research which explored the power of radio. To date, morning radio has done an extraordinary job of surviving and thriving in a competitive multimedia environment. But we know that the landscape is constantly shifting. Radio will have to continue to meet the needs of listeners in the future in order to flourish. Our starting point is the human being. What motivates people? When you look at these people, on the surface they may look very ordinary. Perhaps they look a bit weary, tired, unexcited by life. When we look below the surface, we may find the underlying Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. That's where the gold is. We look for the why behind attitudes and behaviours. When we really understand what people's inner needs and motivations are, we can help our clients' brands make a much more powerful connection. Don't talk to these people like they're old people. Talk to them as if they are Fred Astaire or Ginger Rogers. Connect with their inner dancer and you will resonate much more powerfully than if you just address their demographic. Their need is to feel younger. Their motivation or strategy to address this need is vitality. If you understand both and develop your brands and content to address both, you can make this connection and ensure your brand is as relevant as it can be to your listeners. You need to get your brands and content to meet the needs of the shadow. So using a technique called Sensidium, we're able to get to the inner needs and motivations of your listeners. To understand people's inner needs, we use a framework developed by the Ipsos Morris Sensidium Institute that helps us map the human needs behind the choices we make. This validated motivational framework allows us to identify the core need upon which we can build brands, content, or talent. The framework is built on two tensions. On the vertical axis, there's the personal dimension. This is all about releasing emotions and letting go versus controlling emotions. So you could go out from work and have some drinks with colleagues. Some people head home sensibly after a couple of drinks. Others get really drunk and end up doing karaoke. On the horizontal axis, there's the social dimension. This is the tension or pressure on how you relate to others. E.g., some radio presenters like showing off to their audience, whilst others want to bring their listeners into the radio community. When applied in analysis, the framework helps identify opportunities and market gaps based on fundamental human needs. Remember that people are always on a journey and they're going to encounter different needs in different moments. For this project, we were interested in what people's needs are in the morning and how media and radio specifically can meet these needs. Our starting point for understanding this was to ensure we had a full appreciation of what the morning means to people in the UK and the journey that they take, the routines they have in order to prepare for the day ahead. This starts with us re-emerging from the dream state. Whilst we're dreaming, most people are in a state of peace and tranquility. We're not bound by the rules of the waking world. Sleep is an escape from reality. Everyday pressures of work and family are put out of your mind while we let our imaginations take us to wonderful places. You are then awoken and disrupted. You need to connect with the waking world and all the roles and responsibilities that come with that. Everyone has a different way of dealing with this period of transition, shifting from a subconscious dream state to the conscious world. So we found that people have different coping strategies as they re-emerge into the waking world. For example, some people want a gentle awakening in a safe and familiar environment. They want time to relax and to have their coffee. They want to connect with the world in their own time. This might be a very short period of time, but it's just a moment for themselves which enables them to gradually emerge from their cocoon and face the waking world. This is about cocooning, so cocoon me. On the other end of the axis, some people like to go for a run, have a quick shower, listen to upbeat music and dance around while they get ready in the morning. All of this is about invigoration and stimulation to help them feel equipped to head out into the day. Give me a kick. Connect Me is about people who immediately wake up and reach for their mobile phone to check virtual connections. They like to ensure they're up to speed with gossip and friends' late night activities before they're ready to reach out to the day ahead. Arm Me. So some people are looking for information to get ahead. They need to check their BlackBerry, get the latest news stories or read the Financial Times to ensure they're at the top of their game and are armed to succeed in their day. You can and probably will have multiple needs in the morning. While your core need will be within one segment, you can also touch upon other needs. So, a yellow person whose core need is connect me might be someone who doesn't want to feel left out. They like to connect with people. They wake up, reach for the phone, check social networking sites and text messages before they get out of bed. Once they've showered and are ready for work, they check their BlackBerry while eating their breakfast. They need a bit of a kick, they're needing to be armed with information, but their core need is about feeling connected. So with all these platforms demanding our time and attention, what makes radio unique and why has it survived the test of time? Well, radio is the ideal morning companion. It permeates your subconscious and dreamlike state. As a single sensory media, it allows you to absorb the audio and continue using your imagination to picture the world they describe. What the presenters look like, what's happening beyond the speaker, what's happening within the radio community you're being engaged with. Radio accesses your imagination and therefore eases the transition from dreamlike state into the waking world. Through using your imagination, you feel a deep personal connection with the presenter and the wider audience. You imagine yourself having a conversation with the DJ in your head and you respond to comments and listeners' reactions. You might even start to talk out loud to the radio as you start to emerge from your cocoon state. In addition, radio is felt to be more real. It's not considered to be as sterile and overproduced as television, meaning that mistakes can be made and sometimes inappropriate things are said by guests. This element of risk adds excitement and intrigue not available on other platforms. It's the combination of a single sensory support from a cocoon state and perceived realness that separates radio from other media in the morning. The reality is we can't all stay in our cocoon state. There are roles, responsibilities that we have in the morning. For example, being a parent, getting the kids up, getting the packed lunches made, bags packed, getting them off to school. Or you might have to negotiate the use of bathroom and kitchen within a house share with friends or other members of the family. And we all need to get up and leave the house at some point. Radio is your constant companion throughout the morning as it allows you to go through your routines while not interrupting your coping strategies. Instead, it works in unison with you as you prepare for the day. This gives radio an edge over other forms of media, as most others require you to stop what you're doing in order to interact. Internet, smartphones, televisions are all multisensory and demand more attention than perhaps you are ready or able to give in the morning. Ultimately, we want to be ready to face the waking world in the morning. Because of this, it's important to connect with people who we feel an affinity to, members of our tribe. Radio is tribal. It facilitates a connection between you and a group of other listeners, a group you want to be part of, a wider community of similar, like-minded people. You're often drawn to the DJ, but this could be for a number of different reasons. You may like the sound of their voice, you may like the controversial nature of their banter, you may like the soft charm they offer. Whatever the reason, the morning radio show we choose can be a strong indicator of the tribe to which we want to belong. This is how we want to be perceived by others. So think about the radio station that you listen to in the morning. Not the station you manage or a station in your portfolio, but the station that you personally choose to listen to. How does that station make you feel? How does it fulfill your needs in the morning? When we spoke to people about the radio stations and programmes they listen to in the morning, we found that different stations meet different needs. We're not going to talk about stations specifically, but you may recognise your radio station within the framework, and the needs it fulfills for listeners may not be the same as the needs you thought you were providing. Some people have a need for a kickstart in the morning and want to be invigorated and fired up, and therefore choose a station like Station X, which plays upbeat music, has controversial debates, and generally lifts them up ready to face the day. Some people prefer a softer start to the day, to feel cocooned and be in a familiar, safe place. These people choose Station Z to meet their needs as it has soft-beat music, familiar, friendly conversation, nothing too highbrow that will require detailed prior knowledge. If you are working with one station brand, think about the way you currently reach out and try to engage with listeners. Are you meeting the needs of your listeners in the right way? If you're a parent company, consider the portfolio of radio stations you currently offer. To get the best out of your portfolio, you need to make sure you're meeting a range of needs in the morning. This will mean you're giving more listeners what they want in the morning and getting that all-important bigger market share. We know that presenters are key to creating a bond with your audience, and they're also a big part of meeting morning needs. This is an important consideration for radio stations moving successful DJs to different time slots. If we look at a couple of recent examples, we know Wogan had a highly successful show. He made his listeners feel warm, safe and cocooned in the morning. And there was concern when he was replaced by Chris Evans that listeners wouldn't stay for what would be a very different listening experience. We've heard a bit about how the move altered listening figures, and what you'll see here may go some way to explaining why. Chris Evans meets slightly different needs in the morning, and what's interesting is that he's covering a slightly wider range of needs. Although it can be dangerous to try and cover too many needs at the risk of alienating core listeners, in this case it's a good thing. He gets the balance right and he feels authentic to the needs of a wide range of listeners. We'll have to wait to see what happens with Moyles and Grimshaw. Hopefully, the change can be managed in a way that brings in new listeners without alienating the heartland. They appreciate the way Moyles gives them a lift in the morning, makes them feel sociable and connected, and also provides a bit of a shock value that gives them a kick. However, as we mentioned earlier, one person can have multiple needs, and a radio station has to consider how people are consuming new and different media to ensure they remain fully connected with listeners. This is important because each of your stations needs to be consistent across all platforms. For example, if we look at a radio station that meets the core needs of those who are green, so want to be set apart, if this station wants to engage with their listeners via social networking, which is all about creating connections, it should do so in a way that makes the listeners feel they are meeting their need to be set apart. So the voice you communicate with via a social network needs to reflect the station's niche. You need to offer exclusive, specialised content. You may want to look beyond Twitter and Facebook to more niche networks like Pinterest, Instagram or Ning. If the station is organising gigs, you should remember that gigs are tribal. They give gig-goers a sense of belonging. But for a green audience, you may want to communicate via a last-minute announcement for a gig in a small, intimate venue. You may want to provide early access for highly interactive members of your social network. We also know that making the most of opportunities created by tablets and phones is a key issue at the moment. Apps are often about finding out new things, having new experiences. They can meet a red need. But for your green station, you might want to offer exclusive content that could only be found on your app. When developing new solutions, applications, making the most of this technology, think about the needs of your core audience. If you are a green station, you can still meet other needs, but this should be done through a green lens. If not, you risk being disconnected from the dancing shadows of your listeners.